Welcome to the Strength Coach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Joe Lego, and here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the Strength Coach Experience, episode number 60. I just want to remind everybody real quick, for Organic Muscle, our podcast sponsor, for all your protein and vegetable, fruit, and supplement needs, use my code LEGO15 for 15% off. Great company there, and I want to thank them for their continuing support of the podcast. Today, I want to welcome Geena Martinez. Little background on her. So I was, on Instagram one day, and with her journey, she started playing golf in 2020. And now she kind of puts up all her, videos and stuff on a day-to-day basis through the different courses and things. So I thought that was a phenomenal, project. And I thought it was something great to talk about because as an avid golfer myself, we all love this game. And then you go out there one day and you want to throw all your clubs in a pond and quit forever. So Geena, welcome. And thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'm just happy to, get the conversation going and just kind of talk about your experience.
Hi, Joe. Thanks. Yeah, it's an amazing game, isn't it? It's a love and hate relationship for sure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just go through your background a little bit, and then we'll get involved in kind of how you got involved in the game of golf.
Yeah. In 2019, that was kind of my first little run-in with golf. It was initially, obviously the game's been around for decades and everyone plays it around me. And it was always like, Geena, why don't you play golf? I would never, ever in a million years, Joe, in 2019, probably turn on the TV and watch golf. I thought it was the most boring thing ever. I thought, why do people sit here on the couch and watch a guy putt into a hole? And the thing is, like, these guys make it look so easy, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm watching Tiger, it's like he makes it look so easy. It just looked boring to me. I didn't realize how difficult the game really was. So in November 2019, I had a friend who also is in my business ecosystem, and he said, I'm having a golf tournament. I know you don't play, but this would be a really great tournament, a really great event for you to meet people for what you do. And, I guess we'll go into that, Joe, with kind of what I do for business and my company. But yeah. And so I said, you know what, screw it. Let me just do it. Let me go to Dick's Sporting Goods, go buy something. I had no idea, like in regards to just like, regards to the clothing and any of that, and what I was like, what was appropriate, what was inappropriate. It was a country club. I didn't know I had to wear a collared shirt. The list goes on. So I went out and, didn't even have clubs. I rented clubs from the club for the tournament, and I couldn't swing. There's a ton of obviously, male golfers. I was really one of the only females. And so I knew I was going to make a fool out of myself. But at that point, I was like, you know what, let's just do it. It has to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. So that was it. And from there, I thought, you know what, this is really fun. This is where I can actually go out 4 hours of drinking, boozing, meeting, a ton of entrepreneurs, meeting a ton of owners, and making friends. And it went from, really not enjoying the game to kind of going, okay, this might make sense for my business. This is something that I can actually, close deals, meet owners, founders, and get some business out of this. So initially it was a business driven reason why I decided to pick up golf.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great reason. And I think that's why, for me too, the game is so special. And that's one of the reasons I played when I was younger. And then I quit for about 12 years, about 20 years old. My last round ended with me throwing about 7 clubs into a pond. And then I kind of quit for about 11 years. And then when I when I was in the minor leagues, when I would come home and, go see my parents, me and my dad, because my dad's an avid golfer, we would play, and that was kind of our thing. And then in 2020, I believe, when I was home, I started getting really involved with the lessons and things. But and I started realizing, kind of what you realized off the bat, that it was a great way to meet people, right? For training and different entrepreneurs and for business. And I think one of the things is too, but you have to be decent. Not that you have to shoot a 60, but you have to kind of have a pace of play and kind of be able to play halfway decent to, have conversations on the course. So I think that kind of drives the lessons and kind of getting more involved into, your swing dynamics and things like that. And a lot of times getting lessons and finding a coach.
Yeah, and that was that's the thing. Like, I mean, going back to kind of a professional player, it's like they make it seem so easy when really it's not. It's a, I mean, looking back at my videos, because of course you record your swing and you want to like make sure you keep getting better and better. The form, your hip movement, your flexing, your arms, I mean, I remember in the beginning. So fast forward, to January 2020 or February 2020, I thought, let's do this. Let me go buy, a set. So I went out and bought a beginner set, Stratus, right? I mean, just, allowing myself to at least have a bag. And then then pandemic hit. So it sat in plastic for a good 4 or 5 months. And it was just like, or was that 2019, Joe? Remind me, I'm so lost in years these days.
I think it was 2020 in March.
In
When
March.
the pandemic happened. Yep. And then we were kind of crazy up until, for a while, but real crazy up until I think May or April, depending on where you were.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, in my field, I worked with a lot of private equity investors, venture capital, and their portfolio companies and their funds. And so going out there and meeting, just anyone in that, ecosystem or industry was very driven around golf. So I went out, bought a bag, and I was wondering to myself, how the heck am I going to straighten my left arm, where, you go back. Cause I always thought, there's no way you could straighten that left arm to hit a ball. So I started just kind of going out to the range, and then in May 2020, when the golf courses started to open up, I said, one of my friends, same guy who did the golf tournament, said, Geena, we're going to go do 18. Do you want to go? And I was like, yes, get me out of this house. That was my first thought. Get me out of this house. What can I do? I was like, I can play 4 hours of golf and I can, have a couple of drinks with some friends. So I went out and did it. And it went from May 2020 of not knowing what the hell I was doing till all of a sudden once, June 2020 I was playing, and then July 2020 I started playing. And then next thing you know, it was like every week I was playing, and I was able to, because of the people that I was surrounding myself with, everyone was either a member of a country club, or, they knew where to go. I live in Southern California. So it was like so easy to just be like, hey, let's go to Arroyo. Let's go to, Shady, because I'm a member. Let's go to Oak Creek. I remember walking for the first time on 18 it was Oak Creek. It was July 2020. It was hot as shit, Joe. I don't know if I can curse on here.
Oh, you can say whatever you want.
It was fucking hot. Like, it was 104 degrees, and I had no idea. Like, I was trying to schmooze the CMO, guy, and I said, hey, let's go play around. He's like, great. So I was like, well, I'll book a tee time. I went on, to a website, and I was booking a tee time, and he's like, I really like Oak Creek. I don't mind walking. He's an older gentleman. He's like, it's good for it's good exercise. It's good for, what I do. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll just carry my bag. No big deal. So I finally went there and realized, what the hell was I thinking? I was about to have a stroke, of just like a heat stroke. It was so hot. He had an umbrella, so he was good. He had a cart, not a cart, excuse me. He was a stroller, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was strolling. He had an umbrella. Here I am sweating profusely. I'm carrying my bag. I was just like dying. And at the end of the round, I told him, I said, Craig, we are never doing this ever again. I will drive somewhere to have a cart. And he was just like, I'm so sorry. But obviously now, I would walk, and the right weather. I would have probably a stroller if I was trying to get some exercise out, but that was quite funny. Yeah, I remember that day.
Yeah, no, I think like the whole dynamic, right? You can, if you walk one day, it makes it harder. But I also think the better you get, right, you're able to walk, right? And because now you're not running around, from side to side in the woods and different things. So I think that's another dynamic, is that as you get better, you can go play by yourself, right? You feel comfortable going there in a cart or whatever, and really playing by yourself, because it's like a mental game, being by yourself and being able to analyze shots and things like that. But I think it's always very interesting where when I was terrible, it was get in the cart, drive around, whatever, right? And then as you get better, now I'm not, by any means a professional, but as you get better, you go by yourself, right? You're able to walk and use carts and things like that, because you kind of know where the ball is going to go, right? And then it kind of becomes a whole thing in itself where you're getting exercise, but also you're kind of playing that mental head game as you're walking around on the course, either by yourself or with somebody else.
Yeah, so I walked Spyglass. I was able to play Spyglass when I went to the Pebble Beach Pro-Am tournament. So I was already up there, couldn't get on Pebble, and I walked. It was great. It was gorgeous. It's one of those courses that you have to do. You have to walk. And I think too, to your point, Joe, is when you are walking and you're kind of already in the mood. You get up to your ball. You're not, like you said, jumping out of the cart and then walking over there, getting your clubs. It's kind of like, it's a really nice, serene, peaceful way of approaching the game. I just think that day was just super hot, and I was like, get me out of here. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just been such a great mental thing on top of just being physical. I mean, I work out, or I try to, I go cycling, indoor cycling, and, saunas and, a lot of squats and weights and whatnot to try to stay in shape. But, when you're out there and, doing, like I mentioned, I get a lot of comments and a lot of feedback and tips around the form, and how much I didn't realize how much the form meant. I didn't realize how much the swing meant. I really, like everyone just initially was like, keep your head down, Geena, keep your head down. Mm-hmm. Don't take your eyes off the ball. Look at a dimple, right? Don't worry. We know where the ball is going. We're going to make sure that, we'll tell you where the ball's at. That was the initial, conversation that I kept having every time I played. And then I went from, shooting a 120 and then, to maybe like a 105, averaging 105, 110. Couldn't get away from those triple putts. It was one of those things where I can shoot in the fairway. I'm pretty good at going straight. It's just the distance. It was the height. I kept topping the ball. I was so frustrated. I was like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And as you watch the videos and you're like, okay, well, there's a lot of body movement in me, like I kept getting up from this like upper body. Obviously, I went and bought a book and I, looking at tutorials, and then I got lessons, and it's like, the main focus on one of my lessons, or my instructor at least, was the chipping and the putting, right? Because obviously those were the two key points that will get your score down. It's your short game. But there was something where I was like, man, I'm driving the ball. It's going in the fairway. It's obviously I'm going straight. I'm just not getting the distance. I was shooting like a 120, 140, driver. So it was taking me 4 or 5 strokes just to get on the green, and then I'm 3-putting on top of that. Yeah. So it was just like, oh my God. But then, then finally, I think it was, fast forward a year later after, being able to like play a ton of courses and loving the game just overall now. It's, and I am very fortunate that what I do for a living was allowing me to, mix golf with business and pleasure. So it was just like, this is amazing. I can get 3 C-suites or founders or partners on the course, and then be out there, talk business, have a couple of drinks, hopefully end up closing a deal, and I'm doing what I love. It was just, it made the most sense for me. And so now I'm waking up thinking about it, dreaming about it, figuring out how do I just get better and better and better. So I went out and bought new clubs. I got new clubs for my birthday. They're tailor-made Sim 2s. And then I went out and got a Stealth. And then I now, got out and got a new putter. TaylorMade gave me a free putter to try out. And, there's obviously another one called Indie Golf. Their putter's amazing too. So it's just every time as I go out, it's just always just trying to be better and better and being better than the next guy, I should say. I know I usually don't play with females, but the next guy, it's like, how do I keep up with them is my main point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a constant challenge. I just want to pivot real quick, just because you've been talking about it. What do you do for, a living, and what's your business? What field are you in?
Yeah, so the company I work for is an outsourcing HR company. So what they do is they have a holistic structure, construct model that helps small to mid-sized businesses with everything from a payroll perspective, medical benefits, compliance, risk management, and HR. So everything, an HR turnkey model. And so what that does is it allows for a small to mid-sized business. So if you're a tech startup, you're a life science, biotech, if you're financial services company, whatever the case is, whatever industry you're in, you just want to focus on your revenue generating activities and what you didn't get into this business to know how to operate, payroll or how to
absolutely not
how to make sure that people are in line on an HR perspective, right? You knew what you knew, and you rolled out a product or a service, and you just needed someone or something to kind of put it all together operationally, and that's what we do. So I am a senior manager, and I cover a national partnership. So everything from east to west, it is a financial institution, and I just ensure that they're happy. I ensure that we're kind of mutually bringing in leads to one another. They have the same target market. They're very aligned with the same type of industries that we are. So it just makes a lot of sense. And so for that reason, I travel a lot. I travel, they're headquartered in San Francisco. So that's kind of the reasons for the Half Moon Bay and Olympic Club. I'm able to, meet with the bankers and meet with their clients and partners and their members. And so, hey, Geena, let's go, let's go golfing. Awesome. Went to New York. I'm definitely going to try Bethpage up there.
Yep.
Right, Joe? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure you know a ton. Boston, I fly out to Florida. I'm going to Portland, Seattle in a couple months. So, of course, I'm like here going, how do I get myself on Banded Dunes? I found out it's not as close to Portland as I thought it was. And of course, it's like, 6 courses and everyone's trying to get in during the season. So that may not happen. And then Seattle. So that said, it's just allowing me to travel, find new courses, play new courses, and I take my bag really in my clubs everywhere I go if I can.
Yeah, and no, it's a great way. And yeah, you want to get on Bethpage because the Ryder Cup is going to be there, I believe, after they go. I think they're going to Europe for the next one. And then when they come back to the United States. So once it's there, the whole world will know about the Bethpage out on Long Island. And then I think everybody's going to want to go there. So I try to get there in the next year or two, just in case.
Wow. So that's where Ryder Cup's going to be. That's super cool. I definitely want to try to go to that.
Yeah.
It's taking a master's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a very nice course. I haven't played there. I have friends that do play there. We kind of, travel around different places. The thing with New York too, is there's a lot of water, or you'll have a lot of, sometimes mountains and trees. There's a course up on my house and it's on an apple orchard. So if you hit the balls in the apple trees, you can't find anything. You just kind of give up and you're like, okay, I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah. My boss was, he lives out in New York, and he's like, those courses in Southern California, they're not like the East, coast courses. It's totally different. We're wide, we have like huge fairways. And I noticed lately too, Joe, I was like, I used to hit straight, and now as I'm starting to figure out my form, and I think there's just a lot of tips and advice like thrown at me. I'm starting to see, like, when I played Half Moon, like I was shooting now with the stealth, much further, 160, 180. I shot a 200, 220, but now it's like it's skirting the fairway. It's like literally going, I want to stay in, but I'm not. So I'm just going to go right into the rough. Right. And so I was like trying to figure out, like, what am I switching? How am I, where's my form, my swing taking place, that it's like, I mean, I kid you not. I mean, I'm not trying to like puff up my shoulders by any means, because I really suck, but I was literally going straight down the fairway every hit, every time. Of course, not 100% of the time, but lately I'm seeing it's like just skirting, right? I mean, and I can't say I'm like really slicing. It's not going like this, but it's like I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it, and I'd love, I know, Joe, you do the strength conditioning and everything like that. I'd love to find out, like, where in that type of, exercise am I able to start realizing like the movements of my body. And and people talk about tempo, people talk about just like, like take a deep breath, Geena. I have a strong grip, just relax your body and let the club do the work, right, as they also say. Mm-hmm. And just kind of, and I'm like, okay, great, and then I'm like topping it. And I'm like doing something stupid, like fucking getting it right between two trees or something. I don't know.
Well, from a, we can obviously we go after in depth, but just for, I mean, the best thing you can do, if I was going to ask you if, after you started playing, have you tried to tailor your workouts and the things that you do a little bit with weights and things like that towards the golf swing, or have you just been working on the course? Is that something you've added?
I want to add, let's just put it that way. I'm getting a Fitbit pretty soon, courtesy of a company. And
I do have one.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. What are your thoughts around that? Because the question is, am I doing it today around my strength training and my workouts. I do tell who I'm working with, who I work out with, my girlfriends and my trainers or whoever I'm doing it with, is like, obviously that I play golf a lot, and want to obviously get my swing better. So to your point, no, I don't, but I do, and I plan on starting.
Yeah, no, and it's very, like I said, very gradual. Like I said, you don't need to do a ton, but it's more, you want to do things where getting your body used to rotating on that full plane, but with your arms extended, right? Because a lot of times that happens as you get tired, you start to swing, and then what happens is you'll pull your arms in, and then that's where we get you'll hook it into the woods, or you'll pull it, or you'll hit a draw on accident, which is what happens, right? And a lot of times, and then with the driver, you'll see, because the driver's longer and we're creating that whip effect, if you kind of sway, because I'm sure you've done it too, your irons are great and everything's good, and then your driver's bad, and then your driver's bad and the irons are straight, just because it's a continuous change. So you want to just work on just rotating and being very what is it called, what's the word I'm looking for, very stern in the middle, right? You want to do things where you isolate the core, but also handles, cable rotations, but making sure that your hands are away from your body, because what happens is you want to swing and let the club do the work, and you want to create that kind of whipping factor. But the more you pull your hands in, you're going to limit that. Or if you pull your hands in, you'll over rotate. And then that's where you get the left swing. And then the other thing is, I'm sure they've talked about it too, when you make that nice curve, right, with your swing,
right?
If that starts to be limited and you swing over the top, that's when you start hooking the ball into the rough on the right side of the fairway.
Yeah. That's the one thing I noticed, is just as I get more tired throughout the day, and I don't know about you guys. I mean, you guys are drinking 12 packs of beer and doing shots left and right. By the time I'm on hole 12, I can't be drunk. I'm all, if I'm drinking way too much on the course, then I'm like, all right, shit, I'm done. I give up. I can't play anymore. So I've got to have a really good buzz, not too little, not too much, just right. But yeah, once you get too tired or too buzzed or too drunk, it's like your body just starts to kind of you lose that momentum, right? And so I think that's the one thing you're talking about. And it's like having that conversation within myself. It's like, all right, Geena, I talk to myself when I'm on, when I address the ball, right? So it's like, okay, keep your head down, look at, something on the ball, take a deep breath, tempo, slow, take your time, and I think that's the thing too. I always feel like I'm having to be rushed. Not that anyone's rushing me, but I think it's like, oh my God, you've got, 4 guys waiting for you in the back, or or 2 guys that are waiting to drive, or, and of course I usually play the forward tees, the ladies tees. So the guys are already gone. Now they're waiting on me to get to their ball. And sometimes they forget me. Sometimes 2 guys in the other cart, they're already gone. They're not even waiting for me at my tee box. I'm like, hey, I'm here. So it's, one of those things I have to just and then from there, Joe, it's like, okay, now keep your core in, right? Let your hips, go through first before your arms. And then I'm just constantly, and I think I'm overthinking everything by that point. Next thing you know, but those times where I'm actually just up at the tee box, I'm adjusting the ball, and I just do 2 practice swings, and then I hit, bam, good.
Yeah. Well, I think it's in a head game. I mean, me being from a biomechanical standpoint, I mean, I'll watch a video and be like, well, there's the problem. There's the problem. Right. But I think the hardest part too is when you're on the tee box, you can't adjust, right? At least in the driving range, you could hook a ball into the woods, adjust a little bit, and then go there. I think from hole to hole as well, off the tee box, just, since we're talking about that, it's so hard to adjust, right? And then, you have people that are good, which drives you insane. I think it makes it harder because I have friends that are saying, the flag's tucked behind a tree and they hit driver off the thing and they can't even see where the ball landed. And they're like, oh yeah, it's probably 10 feet from the hole and things like that. So it's kind of trying to bridge the gap, right? And I think that's what makes it so hard. It's not like anything else, because from, the tee box on hole 1 to the tee box on hole 2, it's so hard to remember everything that you thought or you saw that you did wrong coming out of the tee box.
Yeah. Speaking of remembering, I am in awe of the guys who play who are like, I'm like, yeah, I just played, I don't know, Pelican Hill. They're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, I parked. They're like, oh, what hole? Was it the hole with the lake on the right, and with the two trees on the two big trees on the left? And did you, in the bunk? I'm like, how the hell do you remember the course? Like the courses, it's ridiculous. It's like, or I could be like, oh yeah, I played this, muni over here. It's like, oh yeah. I remember when I did this and I shanked it. And I'm like, that's amazing to me. It's like, or they're shanking and they're pulling and they're slicing so much they know exactly where the bunkers and the trees are.
I think that comes from playing the courses over and over and over again, because there's courses at home
probably
that I played like once a week for the entire summer, and then you can, there's little parts. Plus, I think you remember, and that's another thing about it is, I think it's in your head the whole time, right? If there's a hole, right, and you drive great, it goes right down the middle, whatever your maximum distance, right? And you're like, okay, usually when I get here, I'm set up, right? Because I don't think there's anything worse than when you're 110 yards away from the green and you're on your second shot or your third shot on a par 5, and you're like, okay, all I have to do is do what I do all the time with the club that I know I can do. And then you top the ball, it rolls, 40 feet, and then the whole thing goes in the ground. I think that's, one of the most frustrating things. Or when you're on the fringe, you pull a wedge out and then you skull the ball and it goes to the other side, and you're, when you're lining yourself up for a par.
Yeah, that fucking sucks. That one actually, I think, is probably one of the ones where I get really frustrated. And then next thing you know, you scalded the ball. Now you're going back and forth on the freaking green, and you could have at least birdied or putt or parred there. But it's just crazy because it's I used to know which iron was for where I was at, right, the yardage and everything. And when I was playing Half Moon the other day, I was literally using the wrong clubs. I was like, oh shit, I have to actually go down one club now. This is awesome, Instead of playing my 8, now I should be playing my 9, or vice versa. So it was actually quite thrilling to now see the momentum and the change in me, and as I keep playing, and it's like, being able to just like realize like, oh shit, instead of using my 5 hybrid, I should be using, my one of my irons or something like that, And one of the best times, Joe, and I think this is why we keep coming back for more, is when we actually get that one shot that we never were able to do back then. Mm-hmm. So I played Olympic, a month or so ago, and there was a big old tree standing right in front of me, in front of the green. And, I was like, okay, shit, what do I do? Okay, so the fairway's on my left, big ass trees in front of me. Do you go over the tree, or do you take a safe shot?
You go over the tree every time. You go over the tree. You lean back and swing as hard as you can.
Exactly. Old Geena would have been like, you know what, fuck it, take it safe, let's hit the fairway, and then a chip and a putt, right? So now it's obviously, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try it. And I fucking went over the tree, Joe. It was one of the most amazing, thrilling times. Like, I was just like screaming internally. I probably screaming externally too, but it was awesome. I didn't hit the green, but I got over the tree. And that was like, for me, like just one of the most amazing things. I was like, shit, I would have never fucking did that. Or I would have never thought about doing that, And if I thought about doing it, I probably would have never been able to do it. So my point is, it's like that one thing that like, it just makes you keep going back for like, okay, now I'm going down one club. Now I'm able to get over a tree. Now I'm able to, hit a driver further. Now I'm able to go from a 3-putt to a 2-putt. Now how can I get from a 2-putt to a 1-putt? Now I shot an 89. How can I go to now 70s? It's like, it's like a challenge for you, right? Because it's a one individual game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the worst thing you could do, well, the best thing and the worst thing is the first time you ever hit a crisp golf shot that goes straight right after on a lot of time of hitting the ball. Once you learn and you can hit your club at the maximum distance, I think it's the best. And I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine, and the conclusion we came up with is the reason I think why it's so addicting is because when you watch TV, right, and you see your Bryson DeChambeaus and you see your Tiger Woods, right, not that they're different, but they're playing the same course that you can go on, right, on a different day. They're using the same clubs that you can buy, right? Some of the guys aren't in phenomenal shape, right? They're not 6'6" with a 55-inch vertical leap and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So all the things are very similar. And I think what we also talked about is that everything is the same, right? You can't go on to the Tampa Bay football field and throw a touchdown pass to Rob Gronkowski, right? Those things don't happen. You're not going to dunk the ball in Madison Square Garden, right? So, but with golf, it's one of the only things where you can, obviously if you know people or you sign up, you can go stand on the same tee box at Augusta as Phil Mickelson, and you can use the same clubs that he swings, and you can play the same holes. Obviously you'll shoot significantly worse, but I think that's where the allure is, because it is so, like, you can go and do the same things. There is no special privilege, if you will, to get on those courses. Obviously they're expensive, or some of them are members only, but aside from that, you can do those same things.
Yeah. And, it's funny you say that, because I think I might've mentioned that the other day to my friend. I mean, I was able to play La Jolla Country Club, which is, where Phil Mickelson did like it's actually branded and framed, or, whatever, on into the ground. And, he had made I think it was like a hole in one on that hole. Right. And so you're standing right there. And then I was able to, fortunately, be able to play the Farms, which he's a member of, right, in San Diego. So it's like, you're so close. And then I was invited to go to the Farmers, Open, and it's at Torrey Pines. And I'm standing, like, I'm a bit of a band geek, right? So like I'm following John Rahm. It was like John Rahm, JT, and I can't remember the other player, but like, on hole one, and I was just following them, and like, you're right next to them. You're literally, I mean, like, as they're, and then I remember, watching, I think it was like Justin Rose, and this is my story, everyone's like, laughs about it, but like, it was definitely, was it a Pebble? I don't recall. I think it was a Pebble Pro-Am, and Justin Rose was, shooting, and he was on the tee box. He turns to look at me, and he like nods and gives me like a hey, and I like freeze up, and I'm like, hi. And I turn around, and all my buddies goes, we saw that, Geena. We saw that. But what's so fun is like, they're like right here. And so like, I know like 7th hole Pebble Beach, like they're having to walk, right, from 6 to 7, and you're like, they're walking past you. It's just an amazing feeling. And I said, you could never do this if you're watching football or basketball or, or baseball, right? I mean, you don't have the capacity, the capabilities of standing right next to them and watching them, and like watching them play, and how humble they are and how genuine they are. I think that's another thing, is like, I think the personalities, right? That it's just you're able to see like, these guys are just good guys and just love this game, and they make a shit ton of money, and but they're damn good. I mean, it's ridiculous,
Yeah, and they have the clothes.
So easy.
No, and you have the clothes. You talked about it before too. When you first start out, you just wear whatever, collared shirt, and then you get involved in the clothes, and you're like, oh, okay, now I have to buy the shorts and the shoes and the socks and it becomes an event. Now when I go golfing, and I'm sure you're, yourself, it's a thing. Okay, well, what am I to wear? Well, we got the blue pants with the yellow this and the different shoes, and that just kind of appeals. I mean, I think, and I've said it before, that it'd be the greatest thing in the world to be a professional athlete in, because you could be 200th in the world making X amount of money with a nice sponsor. You get to travel around and play different places, and I think that's something else that happens as well, right? It's the only sport you can. You wear the uniform, right? You can wear either the same things, you develop your own style. These things are like that, you use whatever golf ball. And I think that's another allure, right? To do that. It's like you're dressing up to go to work, but now we're playing a game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it went from, I went from having like a pair of pants, which didn't really fit me, and a couple like golf shirts, and to now half of my closet is just golf clothes. And every time I go to like another course, or club, I'm like, oh, what do they have in here? Let me get a t-shirt with like, their logo on it, and it just keeps adding more and more. And then, do you really need 3 pairs of golf shoes? Not really, but so it's just, it's been, it's definitely, and it can be an expensive game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's just this thing where, and it's funny how I got into this whole Instagram was not even my idea, because I've been playing it for such a short amount of time and I'm so hard on myself. And people say to me, Geena, you can't be hard on yourself. You've only been playing for a year and a half, less than 2 years. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, you don't have it. You don't have a chance to be mad, like you can't be mad, these guys have been playing for 20 years. Right. And so I'm like, okay. Cause I didn't know what to compare myself to, who to compare myself to, obviously there's female golfers out there as well that are killing it. Right. And so like, I'm here being so new and I feel like I'm playing so shitty. It just made me feel bad about myself. Right. So, I had a point there. What was I going to say?
Instagram. I was actually going to ask you about that next. Yeah. How did the Instagram stuff kind of start?
So I had a friend who, her sister-in-law, it was in her, I think her mid 30s, and she picked up ballet. And,
okay.
Like something with ballet like that, usually you see a lot of, little girls taking that up at 5 years old, right?
My sister did that when she was from the age of 3 to about 18.
There you go,
Yeah.
right? So for her to pick it up at such a, like later stage in her life, she kind of was like, she started an Instagram page and it was kind of like, hey, follow. And, she kind of, it allows her to, I think, just to allow people to follow her ballerina journey. And then my girlfriend's like, Geena, you should do something like that for your golf, right? You love it. You talk about it all goddamn time. You play it, I'm sick and tired of you, telling me about it. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm not a social media person, right? I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on any of that stuff. I'm, it really just was an obsession of the actual, game. So I didn't take it up. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then 2 months ago, I was talking to one of my buddies who's, in the social media realm. He's in marketing. And he was like, I told him the same thing. I was like, yeah, I've been only doing this for a year and a half. It's like, dude, Geena, you need to freaking do a page, let people follow your golf journey. And I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Right? And I was like, I don't even know if people would be interested. And he's like, dude, people would be interested to, just do it. Like, I'll help you along the way. I'll tell you, like what you're doing, what you're not, what you should be doing. And I was like, yeah, I was like, fine, like, let me just, let me do this and see where it goes. And it just took off. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Wow, that's incredible. Hey, I think it's a big deal. Anybody out listening, if you are starting a business or even in fitness, you have to, use the social media, right? And don't really worry about the repercussions, if you will. But I think social media is important. I mean, I have, same as you, have a love-hate relationship with it. I have to use it for my the podcast. Obviously, I'm not that great on it, but it's kind of helped me to learn how to use it, right? And then it's a great tool. I mean, that's how we got in contact and we met and everything because of social media. So, not only, I think it's important to not view it as always a negative, because I think that's what happens. I mean, not that it's great. There is a lot of negative connotation with it, but when you're doing things like a business or, something like you, with the golf stuff, right, you can put on there and there's a lot of positive impact, right? You were talking about before where, you get feedback on your swing, right? And there's different people that, for every, 20 negative comments, there's different stuff and there's a lot of positive things. And if you learn to kind of block out some of those things, I'm sure you've learned a lot of things from different people and also a lot of networking things as well with the social media.
Yeah, I don't see myself as a quote unquote influencer or creator or whatever they're called these days. I mean, I'm very blunt. I'm very, I'm kind of, I give myself to Instagram in the sense of like, hey, I'm 41, I'm not young anymore, right? I'm a Vietnamese American female golfer. You don't see those a lot these days, and I suck, right? There's a lot of female golfers on Instagram that are really, really good, really beautiful, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to be them. They are who they are, and they're great, they're amazing. I am who I am, and I try to be very vulnerable. I try to be very real. I'm trying to, I'm not someone that's not going to respond to, a message. If you message and, you're like, hey, Geena, like, dude, this is great. Like, and it's very, for me, I think one of the great things that comes from it is that how impactful I can be to someone else that's just started, playing, I'll get a message, Geena, I just started playing, like, this is great stuff, right? You're making me go out there and then they feel more comfortable in their own skin, or like, it's nice to see those things where they're able to just, I'm allowing them to be able to pick up a club and go play and not feel like, oh shit, I'm a shitty golfer or whatever it is, right? I mean, it's allowing people to just, see what I'm doing and realizing, age is just a number. If you're able to get out there and have the time and have the, the ways and the means to do it, like it's a great game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, it's just its own thing. I think it's very different than everything else. I mean, we've talked about it, but even mentally, you're out there by yourself, right? And everybody can give you all the tidbits they want and all the advice and watch your swing. But at the end of the day, it's on you. And I think that's where that frustrating part, right? It's a beautiful, frustrating sport because every time you swing and hit it, it's all on you, right? And it's you can work on separate things and different stuff. But, I think independent, like basketball, I played basketball in college. I haven't played in a long time, but you can practice the jump shot and you can kind of hone that in so that when the game comes, it almost becomes unconscious. But I think for golf, I don't know. I mean, I haven't talked to too many, pros, but I wonder how many swings it takes until you get refined, because I feel like sometimes I go out there and everything is different. You'll go in the range and everything is straight down the middle. And then you get on the first tee and you hit the ball 13 feet. I mean, I just, it's one of those things. It's just a constant battle. And I'm still trying to figure it out with the books and the YouTube, but I think it's one of those things where I thoroughly believe, and I could be wrong, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well, but you can't fix your swing on the course. Like if it's bad the one day, it's going to be rough, a rough 18 if you can't chip on the first hole.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that in regards to just like, the repeated swing, right? So one of a follower of mine who just so happens, like we just so happen to have mutual friends. And so we just now have, connected and hit it off. And so we talked to one another. He just picked up a club, about 2-3 years ago as well. And he just hit an albatross. Like, that's like, I think they say like 60-1, in regards to being able to do so. And I was congratulating him, and he said, it's a repeatable swing. You just got to have this repeatable swing. You go from 90 to 80 to 70 to 60, whatever it is. And I'm like, fuck your repeatable swing. I can do it. It's like this frustration of like, like you said, how many times do we have to go out there and do it? Like, and I feel like, gosh, for someone, in my field business and, and I have kids and everything, it's like, I don't have, time to like go out and be able to, go practice all the time. But you know what, Joe, I am not a morning person. Let me tell you, I am an early bird. I will not get myself out of bed for the life of me. But if you give me a fucking 5 a.m. tea time, I am there. and and it's funny because then like sometimes I'll wake up like randomly, like, what? Kids are still sleeping. Let me go. I'm going to go to the range. Right. And so like, I'll go to the range and, and it's just this crazy thing where you feel like, how often, how many times, what kind of exercise can you do, what kind of training can you do? And at the end of the day, my hope is like, the more I'm, getting involved in, Instagram, the more I'm getting involved in, getting more tips, feedback, and, just everything around, golf, that I'm going to be able to be better, have the Fitbit help me, in regards to my exercise and my heartbeats and what what I'm doing there. And then like the strength training, what am I doing there? Being able to just keep, getting better and better. People ask me all the time, are you planning on going, like pro? I'm like, I don't know. And the answer now is no, but like, I just don't want to lose the game, the love of the game, right? I don't want it to get to a point where it's where I'm now looking at it as a job. No. And I went from fucking hating watching it now, like staring at the TV and like going like, oh my God, Bryson just hit that 441 yards or like, whatever it is. Like now it's like, oh, now I know them by their first name. We're tight like that,
Well, again, it's the same thing. You start watching it too. I do it all the time. I mean, the Masters is in 7 days, and you just watch it. You're like, oh, he did this and he did, all these other things. And the stuff they still do is just unbelievable, and I think one of the things with them that separates as well is they can hit the ball in the woods and then their next shot is 300 yards onto the green. I mean, they're just good at, I mean, you watch it too, and it's even, once you get involved and you start to watch it and you're playing a lot as well, it's not that everything is perfect. It's the collateral damage on the second shot, right? They can bomb the ball into the water, but their next shot ends, a foot away from the the pole. You know, you see it all the time. A guy hits the ball in the bunker. There's the famous Tiger Woods shot, but they hit the ball in the bunker.
Yep.
They're 240 yards away. They take a wood, which for anybody out there who doesn't golf is almost physically impossible. And they'll hit a wood and it will go 240 yards and land right on the green. And it's just incredible. And I think the reason why you watch it as well is the respect goes higher and higher and higher because you're trying to do it on a daily basis. And then you watch what they do and people are like, and I'm like, do you realize how hard what he just did is, you know? And then that's when you start having little arguments. But I think that's one of the things that happens as well, just understanding the game and respecting the game. And then you start to understand how difficult the stuff that they're doing is.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I mean, I think, you know, Michael Jordan said it once, right? Like, I mean, golf is just the most difficult
He hasn't even figured it out fully yet. And he's the most competitive person who's ever lived.
Exactly, right? Tom Brady said he got out of retirement because golf is harder than football. You know, and it's one of those things that it's funny, you know, it's like I would, you know, shoot, and like I get, you know, then like we're done with that hole, and then they're like, okay, what'd you get? And I'm like, oh, I got, you know, either got a bogey or double bogey, you know, and I'm like, what did you get? They're like, I got par. I'm like, dude, you fucking shanked it in the freaking woods. You freaking, you know, went over. I'm like, how the hell did you get a par? And I'm like, I did double bogey, but that's the reason, right? These guys, I mean, you know, if you're there and you have to have that mental state of mind, like, okay, you know what, I screwed up on that last shot. Let me just like take, you know, figure out what my next shot's gonna look like, and just, you know, think about the future, right? Think about the next shot. But yeah, I'm like, okay, where am I going wrong? Like, how am I, you know? And so I think for me, Joe, I mean, my next goal is just, I think, you know, and they say like sometimes distance, because that was what I was gonna say, is like sometimes maybe I should just be okay with the fact that I'm just gonna drive 200 and never drive 250, maybe, right? Or maybe I could, I don't know. But the point is, it's like sometimes it just is like, you know, what's that next goal for me to get to a point where my score gets lower and lower, you know? But you don't want to go fucking get on a range and just chip all day long. That's so boring, you know? You're like, shit, I want to just you take out my stealth and just drive it every time, you know? But yeah, I think my next goal would just be either just getting a little bit more distance, right? And getting my chipping and putting down, at least mostly my putting down. That will definitely increase.
Oh, that ruins the game. I mean, I think that's the other thing too, is that's the last thing you work on. Cause I still am very reluctant to go sit at a golf course for 4 hours and chip the ball 20 feet. But I mean, that can make or break you. I mean, it's the putting and then it's different greens. And I don't understand still how people read greens. I can do it a little bit, but I go with people and they're like, oh yeah, it goes to the left and it does this and hit it there. And then it goes in the hole. And I'm like, or they're like, it breaks left. And then I have a friend from home and he's like, you can't see that. And I'm like, no. I was like, you haven't figured this out yet. I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't. Usually I read it the wrong way and it breaks. I'm like, it breaks right. They're like, nope, it goes left.
Yeah. I think the few things I've learned is obviously like it'll always go down to the water, right? So anywhere you're at, like lakes or, you know, ponds or oceans, it's always going to go down to the water. So I have to be very mindful of that. I think course management for me was one of the biggest things, was like realizing like, you know, okay, like, you know, it was hilly this way and you're going to go to the rough over here. Like, you know, so course management has been really, really, really helpful in my game. But back to the putting, it's funny, when I was at Spyglass and I had a caddy and he was just like, all right, Geena, like the pin's all the way, like, you know, like 20 yards, right? Or, you know, 30 yards or something like that. It was ridiculous. That was pretty far. And he's like, just hit like 10 yards, but all the way on this side of the green. And the pin's like all the way over here. I'm like, what? Like, how does that even make sense, right? And he's like, just believe me, right? I'm like, okay. And fucking what do you know, Joe? It's like I do exactly as he says, and just rolls so nicely right next to the pin. I would have never in a million years thought that. I would have been like, I'm just gonna go straight to the pin. You know, of course, I mean he's been a caddy for, you know, Spyglass for 20 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. But it just the amazing, because you can't see what the green's gonna really look like, right? I mean, you kind of know there's a down slope, but the thought of like the turn, and then when you watch the pros play it, right, like it's like, and then they just get it in like every time. It's ridiculous. I don't know why.
Or where they chip the ball to the area and it rolls to the, I'm like, I don't even know how you even, but the ball will go on and then it will roll through. And I'm like, and to me, that's the most, it's just the whole thing. Like, I'm like, you know, how do you figure all this out? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm always like, what's the, you know, like, what are the steps to figure this out? Do you have to play for 20 years to kind of learn how to read the greens? Because that stuff to me, like my friend will be like, oh, hit the ball. It just goes right in. Right. And I try to read it, and you study the same green. I mean, I've played the same holes and I still can't figure out, over and over and over again. And sometimes I still don't know where it breaks. And then you get new courses, and people that are good are like, oh yeah, it goes this way, it breaks that way. And the greens are thin, so it's going to move. And I'm like, how did you figure all that out with staring at it?
just looking at it. Like Morikawa, I think he shot like 2 chips in, like in the hole, like in one of the tournaments. It's so ridiculous. And it's like, and the undulations, those ones, oh my God, Joe, they kill me. Those, we have a course over here, and their greens are just like, it's like a rolling fucking hill. It's like, if you don't get it past that little bump, you're done. It's gonna roll all the way back, or you get a little too much over. Now you're like, you're screwed there too. And then you're gonna obviously have to go downhill, and then there you go, right? Those are the worst. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I've been trying to learn how to obviously hit out of the sand most of the time, because I'm a pretty sandy gal, so I've heard, or seen there, so I played Trump National. I don't know if you've ever played that, but it's in Ranchos Palos Verdes and out here, and it's like the fairways are really like narrow, and every freaking hole right in front of the green, there is a damn bunker. Right. So you gotta know your shot. You gotta know the yards. You gotta know which club you're gonna play, because if not, you're getting it, you're getting in the bunker. And I remember I played another course, and I think like 18 holes, and there's probably like 30 freaking bunkers. I probably landed in 20 of them, so I've been I'd have to give myself a pat on the back when it comes to getting myself out of the sand. I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, the bunkers are, I mean, I think, and they put them in the, and then when they design them, they put them in the places where the ball's going to go, right? So they're like, oh yeah, we'll just put this, I mean, the Masters is coming up. They have the, Hangman's Corner and all that stuff. They have the one with the 3 bunkers to the side. And then, if you watch when they go play in Scotland, those bunkers are the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
So I'm going to Scotland.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I have a client that played there when he was younger, and he was like, it's amazing. He's like, it's hard, but he was like, it's incredible. You have to go there and you have to play. And
I have to. Yeah. And I mean, what would you say, Joe? I mean, because I initially was talking to a friend, and I said, I think I want to bring my clubs, because I love my clubs, right? They're fitted for me, and they're good for me, and I know how to play them. But he's like, do not bring your clubs to Scotland. Just go around. It probably makes more sense, right? I mean, I'm kind of jumping to a few other countries, so you don't want to drag your clubs around.
No, yeah, you could lose them, I think. And like I said, are you going there? Because I heard are you going to St. Andrews? Because I think with St. Andrews, you have to, it's like first come, like you just go out there and stand there.
I would love to play St. Andrews.
Yeah, I think it's still the same way. Like it's a pub, you just go there, and I don't know, because I watched a big documentary on it probably a few months ago on the Golf Channel. They have I don't know if you've watched a lot of the documentaries, but they have one on St. Andrews, which is phenomenal. And they also have one on caddies, and they talk about the caddies that worked at Augusta, and about the water and the rivers and stuff, and how over the years, like people used to come and bring their own caddy, and now they use the ones that are there because their own caddies don't know where the creek used to be, and all those different things. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we're going from London to Paris to Ireland to Scotland. So my idea is to hopefully get a course in or around in, maybe not London and Paris, but definitely Scotland and Ireland, maybe.
Yeah, at least St. Andrews, they have shared greens, and and I hear if you hit in the grass, you're screwed. No, I've seen it, and I have, like I said, I have a client who's played it, and we talk about it, but he was like, it's just majestic. Like you can feel it when you're there, but if you hit the ball in whatever it's called, the high grass, you're screwed.
You're screwed.
It's just, there's high grass, there's the other stuff. I mean, and then if you read the history, the best players at it were groundskeepers. And then there was a guy, his name is Tommy, and he won the Open like 3 times. This is in like, I think the 1800s, but they shot like 70s in the 1800s with wooden clubs, and like they like dug a hole in the ground.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, it's funny because people always want to give me some type of 2 cents of how my swing should look like, right? And then you look at John Daly, right? And then you look at
he's my favorite.
Is he?
Oh, absolutely. I love John Daly.
He was I was able to sponsor Hogue Classic recently, right?
Wow.
So
Okay.
and he he's just funny as shit. Like I'm right there with him. He's like, I had a suite on hole 7, and so it was like a par 3. And he just comes in, in his cart, right, and he's just, chilling like a fucking villain with his cigar or whatever it is. And he just gets up there and he just like knocks it, right. But yeah, John Daly's swing, right, and then you have, I think even there was another Bubba Watson. His swing's different, and so I always go out there and I'm like, okay, well, I feel like everyone wants you to look exactly like maybe Rory's swing. The guy's got a fucking mean swing.
Rory,
right?
Rory hasn't won in a while. That's the only thing.
I know. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
If he listens to this and gets mad, I'll be happy. So it doesn't matter. If it reaches him, I'll be like, sorry. But yeah, he hasn't won in quite a while. The last time he was close, he hit his ball in a drain, and I forget what course that was in, but that was last year.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Right. I mean, it just all depends. It's like, yeah. So I guess my point is allowing the individual to play the game as he or she seems that's perfect and fit for them, right? And what that looks like. Of course, there's always going to be the form. There's always going to be, what's needed to actually be a good golfer. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, if I'm able to go straight, then I'm doing something right, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it too. It's understanding that everybody's swing is individualized, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like. Their swings are their swings, right? And there's so many aspects to it that you can't look like anybody else, right? I mean, John Daly be great. I wish I could play like him. I wish I could just grab the thing and swing as hard as I could, because that's what he does. But it's you have to be their finesse. And I really don't think you can emulate anybody's stuff. I mean, I wanted to ask too, since we're getting into that, what is your opinion of Bryson, right? I love Bryson because he's the biomechanics stuff, right? And trying to make it better for, the general population. I know that some people have issues with him changing different things. And I understand sometimes he gets very frustrated, but I also think that it is a positive, right? Because he's kind of changing something. I know people don't like it. Everybody out there, listening they don't like it because he's changing something that's been ingrained, but I also don't think he's doing anything wrong. I think he's just making different things, so that it's more appealing to a group, because, as we've been talking about this whole time, to me, golf wasn't a thing I did. I started playing golf when I was like 25. It wasn't like, let's go play golf, right? In high school, we had a golf team, but there was like 7 people on it, right? It wasn't something that you could do forever, right? They don't have golf signups for little kids, next to Little League and everything else.
I know, right? I mean, that's actually very, very true. You don't see that, as you're walking, or I'm driving down neighborhoods and whatnot. But, it's funny. I mean, I think, just the whole point in regards to just the swing conversation, like John Daly, he goes all the way back, right? And I had a couple of videos where my club's like kind of a little bit more over my head. And, there's been, feedback and comments of like, Geena, you're going way too over. Like, it's too much. You got to be at a 90-degree angle, or you got to do this, you got to do whatever. And I'm like, all right. So then I start overthinking. I'm like, oh shit, well, if I don't do that, here, let me take a look at myself in the mirror. And like, how far do I go? And then you get the Bryson, who's fucking, I think it's very entertaining.
Yeah,
I think, he came in and has made, there's been a lot of discussion around golf because of him, right? He's, and then you've obviously got the Brooks and Bryson.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then, they're 2 young, good looking guys who are changing the game. There's a lot of different types of challenges that you see out there when it comes to long drive, or, when it comes to the top golf thing, I try not to, I'm the type of person that I try to kind of steer clear of anything that's going to be a little bit more, on the trendy popular side. I like to be like, I like to protest and boycott. I like to root for the underdog. That's just my personality. I'm like, oh, okay, you love this. Okay, well, I'm going to love this.
Just because I can.
Rebellious. What?
No, just because. No, I kind of do it similar. Oh, if everybody's going to go to the one side, I'll just go on the other side for the fun of it.
Yeah. Just for that sake, like, that said, to each his own is what I say, right? Allow people to do what they want to do and make judgments, or make a call, or do whatever makes them feel good about themselves, right? I would never judge anyone. And so I think for myself, this, being, kind of now having, a few thousand followers on Instagram, it's allowing myself to just be like, what, I am, I'm going to have a lot of feedback, a lot of criticism, a lot of critiques. Bryson's going to have the same, which is where I'm going with this. It's like, allowing him to just do what he wants to do. And if he's great at it, he's having fun with it, and he doesn't change the actual game. Like obviously he can't, right? There's a lot of rules in place. Then, let him be what he's doing, let him do what he's doing. And for myself too, I'm a golfer that I just love the game. And yeah, I'm probably doing a lot of things wrong. But I just, and I want to do things right, but at the same time, I want to keep who I am too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're trying to do all the right things. And I think that going on to the negative side of social media, I think that's one of the issues where even with Bryson, people nowadays think that they directly have a line to people, right? And they have to get their fill. They're right. There's a lot of times where you hate somebody, a professional athlete, something, and it's, well, why? Oh, well, they didn't apologize verbally on the news or on, Instagram. And I'm like, they don't owe you anything. Bryson DeChambeau doesn't have to talk to anybody. Like, he does it out of, respect for the fans, right? Like, I was in professional baseball, right? And everybody's like, well, how are all these people? And I said, well, they're normal people. I said, but a lot of them aren't the happiest people, right? And they're not this and that. I said, but you have to remember, they grew up playing baseball. When you sign up for Little League, like we talked about, they don't tell you have to be nice to people, right? They play baseball. They're good at playing baseball. Nobody tells you when you sign up or you start playing at an early age, even older age, you have to be nice to everyone, right? Obviously, you have media days as you get higher and higher into different things, but that's just part of their personality, right? So, it's one of those things where everybody has to understand, like, they don't owe you an apology, or they don't have to directly tell you everything going on, right? If they break their toe getting up out of bed at night, they don't have to go on Instagram and write it down so that everybody's aware that they broke their toe, right? They're allowed to have a bad day. I mean, it's just constantly like, I went through it a little bit, not as much, but having cameras on you all the time and like people know everything about it is not fun, right? And I think that, I understand they make ungodly amounts of money to play games, but the point is that everybody, listening out there and everything else is that you have to understand, like, it's constantly people are watching every single thing they do, and they're normal people. They have flaws like everybody else. So it's very hard to be on all the time. And I think, getting into, my point with golf and tennis, you're by yourself in the middle of a field essentially, and everybody's watching every single thing that you do. Right. And you're not allowed to, right? Like Bryson, right? Regardless of the biomechanics stuff, right? Sometimes he gets aggravated, or he's not happy all the time when he shoots a 9, right? But you have to understand, like, that's a normal thing, right? I throw my clubs in the air all the time. I mean, I stopped doing that a little bit, but it's just a natural thing, right? And I think, again, back to what we've been speaking of too, the more you play the game, you understand. If he hiked his clubs into the water, I would 100% be like, oh yeah, that's no big deal.
Yeah. I had, a follower, he was like, hey, you should do this, and this, right? Like, just on. And I was like, yeah, and then all I did was just like a thumbs up emoji. He wrote back, he's like, what? No reply, no comment. What? You're just wanting likes. Is that what that is? And I was like, okay, dude, like, relax, like, I appreciate the feedback, but I'm not going to respond. And just to Bryson, or not that I'm at any given point, like, at the level of
like
Bryson.
my friend Bryson. Yeah.
Like my friend, I have speed dial. He's on my speed dial. But no, I mean, it's just like, I think there's a lot of appreciation, that can be, that's thrown around, right? Like, I appreciate everyone, and what they say and their thoughts around it, because I think we just all have the same adoration for the game, right? So I think it's that. But sometimes it can be a lot. It can be overwhelming. It can be it's a consumption that you have to, at this point, where I was like, oh shit, I only had 10 followers now, at this point, many more. I'm like, I just have to kind of remember too, to, like, take it with a grain of salt, because there's just going to be a lot thrown at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing, with me with the comment. I mean, I have to try to answer them, because I'm like, yeah, okay, we have to like, and we have to do this and that and the other thing. And I think it's a learning experience. Again, it's something to learn. I don't know how. I mean, I guess the younger kids that are influencers of millions of followers, I don't know if I'd want to, like, even if I had that, I'd have somebody else run it, because I don't know how people deal with just all the time, just constantly, like, everybody has opinions, and most of the time they're not even good at anything, right? It's always, the armchair quarterback, right? The expression, it's in everything now. You should do this, and you should do this, and you should try to do this. And, even sometimes
armchair quarterback, I like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long ago term, but it's people that sit and watch football on Sundays, and then they call up radio stations and start griping about how Tom Brady should have thrown the ball 70 yards instead of
Yeah.
65 and everything else. But I think it's with everything, with the podcast. Oh, you shouldn't do these things, and I'm sure with your golfing. Well, why don't you change this and change that? I'm like, well, do you actually, do you play golf? Do you coach people? I think that's another thing. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do that, but I would also suggest that too. When you play with your friends, start helping them along the way as well. And that's that for me, that was always not with golf, but just in general for strength conditioning when I got involved in coaching is when you start to coach somebody else.
Yeah.
You start to be like, okay, this isn't as easy as it is. Or right. If I explain this to somebody and they're not getting it, maybe, maybe changing the way or helping you as well with those things.
Yeah. And it's crazy that you said that because it seems to be a lot easier when you're telling someone to do it versus you telling yourself to do it. I have a friend, he was just like, Geena, I really want to get in. Can you just help me out? I'm like, well, I'll help you. I'm happy to go to the range with you. Take everything I say with a grain of salt too, because I'm learning as I'm going. But when we got out there, it was a really nice, great surprise where, he went from not even being able to hit the ball to me going, you know what? Why don't you, kind of crouch down like you're sitting on a stool, right? So that was kind of step one, right? And then step two is okay, not the plank, but there's supposed to be some type of wall where as you're bending over a little bit, right?
Yeah.
There's
when they explain planes motion, it's one is in front, the other one's across,
yes.
And then
Exactly. And so, and then, just kind of getting him to say, okay, hold your core in, right? Okay, great. Now, get down and and so when I was telling him and kind of coaching him and it was I'm like, why don't I do that shit? Right. Why am I not doing that? And then, an hour later, he's now hitting the ball, he's getting air. And so it's actually really, really cool. And it's funny that you say that. I mean, it is, I'm in my own position at work, I'm always, kind of developing people. I'm always developing my internal sales teams and, I'm training a lot. So something that I love already to do, which is mentoring, and being able to just get out there. So when people do ask me on Instagram, they're like, hey, are you an instructor? Are you a coach? Do you want to help me? And I'm like, oh, yes, but I'm probably not the right person to be doing this, But yeah, no, and then back to just outside of coaching and lessons, I definitely, feel like I could probably get a better game if I am, if I do start taking lessons again. I think it's really understanding who's the right person for you, right? Because I've gone through 2 instructors whom are great. I learned a lot from them. One, I learned a lot from on the chipping and putting, that was most of our focus. And then the second one, he kind of took a step back and was just let me see your swing, Geena. And then I'll tell you kind of a little bit here and there. And I think it was he told me to go out and get a decibel, I don't know, a decibel range or meter where just worked on just getting my swing faster and faster and faster. And that was where I was going to be able to get my distance. But I just, I felt I feel I want someone that is able to actually kind of coach me through body and form. I think that's one of my major weaknesses is being I use my hands a lot. It's what people say, right? Versus having it's more body movement, or at least lower body movement, right?
Yeah.
So if anyone's listening and you're that type of instructor, let me know.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the whole thing, breaking it down is extremely hard, right? I mean, I think one of the most frustrating things is, I don't know if you've seen it, but the Jack Nicholson documentary where he hit a 2-iron, I think it was at Torrey Pines at the US Open, or it might've been at Pebble Beach, and there's a par 3 and it's 200 and some yards. And then if you miss the green, it goes into the water, and he threw the swing. He adjusted halfway in between him bringing the ball back and swinging, and he hit the ball. Yeah, it's one of his, I mean, he's won a ton and he's unbelievable. But yeah, he's at I think it's a par 3 at I think it's at not Torrey Pine. I think it's at Pebble. I think there's a famous par 3, which is straight and the ocean's in the background. And he talks about, yeah. And as he's swinging, he was like, oh, I'm pulling a little left. So now I'm going to adjust. And he hit a ball right at the flagstick and it landed.
Wow. Yeah. I sometimes I can tell too, halfway that I want to just kind of shift either my wrist
you know, or my arm or like my body, like, cause I'm already thinking too much into it, you know? And so like, you already know, right? I think Joe, I mean, I don't know if you can agree, but like, you already know, like right when you move that club back, you're like, oh fuck, this is going to be a bad
yeah.
swing.
How many times you got up to the tee box and you're like, this doesn't feel right. This is going to be bad. You're like, well, there's people behind me or whatever. And you swing and then you're like, this is bad. Yep.
Yeah. That's it's really funny. And then you have the ones that are like, oh shit, this is going to be a really great fucking swing. And then you go and then you're like, yeah, right there. And you're like, and then you feel like you hear the crowd, like even actually like, oh, copying, you know, like it's like one of those. Yeah, it's just crazy what this game has done to me. You know, it's just really taken over my life.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. I mean, I did it, you know,
like for a couple hours.
Oh, you have a tee time today?
Tee time, yeah.
Oh, wow. I've only gone twice since moving here, but the course is here a little different, but I got to go get some lessons and things. So I want to talk about that part too. For somebody starting out, right? If I wanted to start tomorrow, right? What do you think would be the best kind of bang for your buck? What do you know, should you get your clubs fitted and then worry about kind of getting a lesson, or should you buy a run of the mill pair of clubs and then maybe, you know, go out with somebody first for you and for your experience right over the last, you know, 2 years or so? What do you think, or what would your advice be on, you know, doing that if you're starting out, right? I have no clubs and I haven't really played the game, you know, and I'm kind of interested in getting in there.
Yeah, I think, you know, the first thing I think is to take lessons for sure if you don't play or have never played. And, you know, because I think, you know, the first thought was like, you know what, let's buy some cheap golf clubs, right? And, you know, I bought my wedge from a consignment store for 25 bucks. I mean, it works, right? My sand wedge, you know.
And you do spend a lot of time in the sand, apparently.
Yes, apparently. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think getting fitted, I got my driver fitted, and so it's a, you know, it's a three wood shaft, right? So it's not even a driver shaft. And for me, it's did wonders to my game. So I think, you know, as you I guess let's take a quick step back. So step one would be to get lessons, right? So to get lessons, understand the form, understand the game itself, how the mental, you know, because it's all mental, right?
Oh yeah. That's why you start drinking, because you're like, I can't deal with this. And then you have to.
Oh, and mind you, you know, cause I work from home and, you know, and I, you know, oversee a national partnership and, you know, although I am playing golf for work, right? Because it's everyone I'm surrounding myself with is either a partner or a client or a prospect or someone. There's always emails coming through. There's always a phone call, like in the middle, as you're about to like probably like hit that shot, someone's calling, right? Going like 911, we need you. So when your headspace is like still cloudy from work and from just things overall, it's like you're not going to play a good game. You know, you might as well just fucking, you know, walk away from the course. That's the way I feel anyway. But sometimes, you know, I mean, you just like it also allows you, hey, you know what, let's take a fucking shot. Oh my God, Joe, let me tell you this really quick story, and I'm gonna totally digress here. So my company has a suite at the Chase Center in San Francisco, and I was hosting a game, and I literally was talking to a couple of guys. We were talking about golf. I had a round at Half Moon Bay the next day, and I was so excited. This is 6 months ago. And I said to them, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. You know, this and that and this, and I had a couple of drinks. And, you know, it wasn't the drinks, you know, probably, maybe, possibly. But I was sitting at like, you know, it was stadium seats. So the chair was going, you know, goes up and down, right? So I'm sitting on the second row, the guy's sitting in the front row, and we're talking about the Rams game. The Rams were playing, and, you know, we're like, oh, what's the score? So I kind of like got up from my seat to show him the score from my phone. And I went back to my seat, and the seat was up, and I fell on my ass, on my bum, and I freaking sprained my tailbone.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
And I was like, but you don't really feel it yet, right? I mean, obviously it was such a rush at the time. It was like so quick. So I say that, I go to sleep, and I'm like, my tailbone's hurting, right? And I'm like, no, please don't tell me. I'm like, please. I was like, do not tell me I can't play tomorrow. So I wake up, right? It's like our tea time was like 7:20 or something. And it's 5 a.m, you know, get coffee, drive over there. And I'm like, just pretending like everything's okay. I'm like, you know, everything's fine.
And I get there and, I kind of tell, the group, I'm like, hey, this is what happened. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play. And they're like, you know what, just try to play. Just try play. First hole, couldn't even get myself to twist my body. Second hole, it just went down. I was just like, I literally threw my club, Joe. I was like, this is fucking bullshit. Like, I can't believe I've been waiting for this round for the last, like, however long I've known about it. And I freaking sprained my tailbone. I couldn't do anything. So talking about alcohol and everything, we go to like, at the turn, and we're like, you know what, let's take some shots. We took 4 tequila shots. I took a couple of Advil, so like, I think like hole 14, and we're like, let's take another shot. So now I'm 2 tequila shots in with some Advil. Now I'm feeling good. I'm like, all right, you know what, screw this shit. I'm going to just like hit it. And like, I think at 17 and 18, I literally was able to do a full swing. And I actually have a video on my Instagram page of me doing the 18th. And it was just an amazing feat. Like, just the fact that like I had a sprained tailbone, and I went in and I just kind of like, did a couple practice swings, and like I just like hit it. And I made a bogey on that, but it was just it's a nice feeling of like, and I'm very accident prone, mind you. Like, so I have a ton of stories about just me falling all the time. But yeah, it's just it's alcohol definitely helps your game. Is my point.
Well, because it's, like I said, it's so frustrating. I think that's where it comes from, right? I mean, I think I was always interested, speaking to John Daly, because he always said, if they let me drink on the thing, he goes, I'd be phenomenal. He said, I just can't. Because he said when he was playing and he was coming off of the alcohol, he started eating candy.
Yeah.
And then that's how
the
he gained.
Pros can't drink during the tournament or at any point, right?
Yeah, no, they can't.
The Ryder Cup, you remember that, Joe?
Oh yeah, the Ryder Cup's amazing.
Yeah. They were drinking there. I felt like they took like a can thrown in from the audience, from the crowd. Yeah.
Well, that's a whole big event. I mean, but that, again, we go back to Bryson. That wouldn't have been that way if it wasn't for him, because people don't, like I said, you can love him or hate him or whatever, but it's one of those things. It brings regular people to the sport, because ideally you're not going to sit on Sunday and watch golf, but he's hit the ball 417 yards. It doesn't matter if you play the game, if you've never heard of it, you're aware that that's a big deal, right? And like, and honestly, he's like, I don't know if you follow, but Greg Norman was my parents' favorite golfer growing up. And the reason why is because he'd be 5 shots ahead on the Masters going into the, the 17th hole, and he would try to hit a hole in one, hit the ball in the water, and he would lose the lead. And that kind of drew people in. And then you had the Tiger era, where he was just doing all these amazing things. But now I think Bryson is kind of bringing that back, because not that to bad or good, but sometimes with him, it's like, okay, he's playing really good. When's he going to come apart? Right. Because I feel like that's what he does. I mean, and he just keeps kind of going for it. He doesn't have a relaxed setting. He could be up by 5 strokes, in the 17th hole and be like, look, take your 3 wood out and just get it on there. He's like, no, I'm going to go for the thing. And he hits left and right. He's a big left and right guy. Cause
he's a big Bryson fan. So, I mean, there was that, I don't recall who he was going up against. I want to say it was Torres or some, it might have been Sergio, but there was one tournament like, last year that he played, and they'd have to go 17, 18, 17,
oh,
18.
yeah, the 6-hole playoff. Yeah. And they both kept going on and on and on, and they went 8, 9, 8. Yeah. I watched the whole thing.
Or 8, 9, it might have been that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like, I mean, and just, you could see the frustration, right, in both of them, but mostly in Bryson, I think, a little bit more. But like, I mean, I just think I'm a fan. I think he has made it much. He's made the game different. He's allowed, for younger golfers to come in and be like, hey, this is a cool sport, right? And then for me too, I think it's fun to watch him play. I think it's, and when it comes to strength conditioning, I mean, I didn't know him back then, right? Because I never watched, but I mean, I've heard, right, that he's, kind of gotten more fit and being able to play better, because I think for that reason of, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So he went to school for like physics, and his girlfriend has a degree in kinesiology and like exercise science. So he's just been, he went to SMU, and he just been that's what he does. Yeah. So that's what he's starting to do. And I think that, I don't know if that's a negative connotation, but kind of adding that in, like they've all done things, right? Tiger was the first one to start to do those things where like, okay, I work out here for this and I do all these other things, but he's kind of at the forefront where it's okay. No, I do all the right. We work on increased swing velocity, right? He tracks that all the time, or doing things that allow him to create stronger and stronger and stronger, whip speed and things like that, and then control different things, playing around with the putting, right? Understanding how hard force and the ball, right? And that's what it is. And I think he gets backlash because not that they don't want you to know that, but that's very in-depth stuff that it's just like, oh, I have to go out and practice and practice and practice,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not saying you don't have to practice, but like like your experience, once you identify that your swing, you can hit the ball further. Now we have to increase your power output. Now we have to increase your fast twitch muscle fibers and things so that now your swing speed is faster, so that it's the same swing, but now there's more power behind it. So now your 150 goes to 250. And then, your wedge game is, you don't have to take out, you can use a 60 or whatever, when you're 60 yards away, as opposed to a 47. And I think that is, then you have, the one length, right? Which I've swung, which I'm thinking about getting, just because for me, it's very hard, as we talked about, to repeat my swing. And the science behind that is that if everything is one length, you only have to take one swing independently of your driver and your hybrids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and back to the whole, if you're a beginner, and what would I give, that what advice would I give? That I think it's definitely the lessons and definitely the strength training, because I have a friend, I've actually got two friends just recently, and, and separated, like these conversations are totally individual conversations. And just so happens that they're like, hey, I'm taking lessons, but not just like regular lessons, like with an instructor that's allowing them to help with their form or their swing. It's like, 36 lesson spot where they're doing, they're even massaging their feet. Like they're,
Wow.
they're yeah. And the TrackMan, right? Showing them not only just, what the distance is going to look like, or, or the carry, but like very specifics of how the head is being, like what does it look like, on the screen, right? Is the head straight? Is it, are you hitting in the middle? Are you, needing a little bit more of a, slant of your, driver? Because my driver is actually fitted to a little bit of a slant for me. And so like, I think, lessons are just extremely important and mostly for someone that has never played in their life before you go out and you like go get fitted and stuff like that. I think, and for me, I think I'm just kind of an average height. I'm 5'4", and so when I went out and tried to see if this, my Sim 2s should get fitted, they were like, not really. I kind of appreciated that, because I felt like they weren't really going to try to sell me on like, yeah, you should, and let's go do this, and like, and then whatever the case is. But I think for anyone who's listening, I think it's just really important to just know it's mental, be prepared that, like it's just go out and have fun, because it's a very frustrating sport. And it's funny, there's an argument out there that, is this an actual sport? Like, is it a sport, right? Like, cause you're not going up against anyone. There's no, competitiveness around there. I mean, it's competition for yourself or for, whatever the case is. But yeah, the point is, I would say just do that and have fun with it. Make sure that you are able to, know that every round is not going to be the same round as it was the last time. You're gonna, and I mean, I'm just excited. I think, and give yourself a goal. Like if it's going to be, okay, I'm triple putting, just be focused on that one, right? Don't try to change your drive and change your irons and, swings and then change the putting. Like focus on the putting. I think that would be, and then like focus on the chipping and then focus on a little bit. And I think that's going to, give you a better shot at being better.
Absolutely. Or if you're not a competitive person, it's probably a great sport, because then you don't care what happens. But if you have a little shred of competitiveness in you, you're screwed, because you're going to go out one time and be like, okay, I shot 120, whatever. And then, and I think also, to your point too, make sure you're playing with people that are better than you, right? I think that helps a lot. I mean, that helped me, because I started playing with my friend who were, they're not, I have a friend who's very, very good. And then there's ones that are in the middle, but they're still, relatively better. And I think that that's another thing. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. When you play with people that are better and they can help you, but also I think they kind of drive that competition, right? I always feel like with the more competition,
people that are fun too.
Yeah.
Don't take the game too seriously.
Yeah.
If you're, and mostly, and if you're new, I mean, for me, it's like, I've been paired up, Joe, I don't know about you, but like, I've been paired up with assholes, like, and, and they're like, oh shit, here we go. It's female golfers, probably fucking sucks, whatever. Now we're gonna have to wait for her, and it's like, and like, there's golf etiquette, right? I mean, no matter how Bryson, changes the game or how he's making it fun or whatever it is, there's always going to be that golf etiquette. And I think, to that, it's like, I was paired up with these two guys and, literally like, oh yeah, of course, like I would shoot, say the 140 to the drive and they were shooting 220. They would just like literally go right up to their ball and just like be in front of me and just like shoot. And it took me to finally like the third hole where I was like, all right, dudes, like I get it, like you guys are better than me, but like I would appreciate just, a little bit of like golf etiquette. Like if I'm still obviously in the back, don't be in front of me. They're like, well, we realized like, yeah, maybe we should be playing separately, and I was like, yeah, I totally like, yeah, you go for it. Like, so we just like kind of went our own way, but like, what kind of shit is that? Like,
Yeah. Well, some people, again, it's again with I think a negative is that everybody goes and plays, right? Everybody goes and gets clubs and everybody just thinks they can play, right? I mean, I've been at disastrous places too, where you have people on one side that don't know what they're doing or everything is, I mean, I'm in no way a professional golfer, but it's the etiquette thing. I think it's very important when you play to watch the other people's ball, right? Because I can't find anything. Half the time I can't find the ball when it's in the middle of the fairway. So I'm like, oh, did you watch that? And they're like, no. Why can't you ever find? I'm like, I can't. I don't know, but but I think it's important because it's all those things on top of a game that's difficult. So you want to make sure exactly you're going with people that play the game, right? People don't get frustrated. I do sometimes, but just making sure that you're going, and I think the other thing that's not talked about is understand where you're going, right? Do research on the course, right? Don't go to a Torrey Pines the first time you're going to go out there because there is etiquette. There's the Rangers. There's the getting sped up, right? You don't want to slice the ball in the woods off the first tee. There's a lot of different things that go in, and I've been in situations with people too where they're not that they're not good, but it's like you can't bring certain people with you because, again, not great, but I can play at pace and do those things. So I think a lot of things go through it, but I think also it's a deterring factor, right? If you go with somebody who's super competitive and doesn't help you or complains, right? Understand, I think it's a great point you brought up. Understand who you're going with, right? Understand that these are people that or, that are going to help you. And I also think if you just out there for business, right? Because I want to also talk about, next, just how your business and things have changed, in terms of networking because of picking up the game. But, when you want to do this for business, right, understand that when somebody asks you to play, talk to them a little bit, understand how good they are, because I do it all the time. I have people that they get 50 lessons a year and they're like, we should play. And I'm like, okay, just so you know, I'm okay, but I'm not going to be par in the thing, because if somebody brings you out there and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I shot a 41 once. Right, you're going to have some issues there. So I think that's another thing where if you're looking at this as well for a business standpoint, right, because it does do well in certain things depending on your field, just make sure that you're honest with everybody, right, and kind of make sure that
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Strength Coach Experience for all the latest updates on the podcast, as well as upcoming episodes. Thank you.
It doesn't make it enjoyable. And as you said before, it's 100 degrees out and it's 4 hours of your time. You want to make sure that you're kind of enjoying the whole time, even if you're not playing so well.
Yeah, and I'm pretty honest about it. Like if I'm putting a round together, like, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm not good. I just love to play. You guys are cool with that. Great. Awesome. If you're not, well, all good. Right. So I think, and I get to play Torrey next month. So, I'm playing the South course, and I've never, I was there for farmers, but I mean, it's obviously a huge course. I wasn't able to, I don't even know what course. I think we're on North, but yeah, I mean, I think it's just like something to where you're just, you're like, look, here's the etiquette, and I've learned a lot about the game, right? As I keep going, and I think it's just, also being fun. I mean, there's the guys that I've played with before where they're just like so drunk, they're just like walking over my line. I'm like, okay, whatever. Or the ones that like will pick up their ball because they just gave themselves a gimme. I'm like, okay, I mean, we do that all the time. Don't get me wrong, but it's like a huge gimme. It's like, but I don't mind that too. Like I actually have a friend who I play with all the time, and I tell him like it's he'll be like, if he has room, he'll be like, hey, I need a fourth, I need a third, or hey, you want to just go play? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And there's never a pressure to be good, right? Never a pressure. He doesn't score. He goes, he picks up his ball because he's just out there having fun. It's not that big of a deal. He just wants to get out of the house or whatever it is, and and I usually always score really well with him.
he because I tell him like, you bring me this like kind of peace, peacefulness that like I'm just playing, I'm out here we're just having fun, we're having a couple drinks and we're shooting shit, and I always play really well with him. And then you got the ones that are you're like really like, oh shit, intimidated by, right? I mean, I played with scratch golfers and I'm like, what am I doing here? But they're really nice, right? They're like, yeah, don't worry, take your time, when they're really probably like, shit, Geena, hurry up. But yeah, no, I mean, it's, and then you have those, and then I suck. I'm like, I think because I'm trying to impress, because obviously they're, someone that I need to impress in regards to work wise, in business. And so next thing you know, I'm like constantly like topping or duffing the ball, or like I'm going all left or right. And so it's just, and it really is a mental game. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's like, if like, and I have to just tell myself, like today, right? My tee time's like at 3:40 today. And I'm like, all right, what, just go out and have fun. It's a Sunday, don't worry about it.
Yeah. But I think it's, make sure that who you're going with is there, because there's a mindset. There's certain people I go with and it's everything is garbage. So I think it's just important. So moving into that. So say somebody, listening, they want to get involved for, business reasons, right? How is your business kind of, changed or been impacted in a positive way through, picking up the game, and then kind of what you've learned along the way, like what to do and what not to do if somebody wants to say, okay, they're involved in something where you're getting clients, and instead of, maybe going out to dinner or doing things like that, maybe adding golf as a means to maybe gain clients and kind of, help with networking as well.
So my business is very, I mean, I've been in sales for over 20 years. And so, I'm no longer in sales. I'm in strategic partners, but still sales, right? You're always selling, no matter how we're selling, my Instagram page, you're selling your podcast. We're always selling. So I think it's really it's building the relationship is very important when it comes to closing a deal. So you're trying to get in front of someone, and then you get in front of them. Right, if you're trying to close a deal, it's not very black and white. There's a lot of things involved, and they need to trust you. They need to show, they need to see that you're, obviously credible to your product and service, and what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, there's a ton of competition in the market, with whatever industry you're in. So how do you get this person's engagement for 4 hours and have this discussion and letting them get to know you too, right? So not only are you're getting them on the course for 4 hours, so you now have 4 hours of talk time, but it's really not even talking business, right? So everything I've done in my field has always been around networking. I've never, I didn't pick up the phone to make calls. I didn't do anything. I went out and I just made friends. I introduced myself to whether it was at events or happy hours, and then I got into golf, and that's kind of, but being successful around that, it's about, earning their trust, I think, right? So there's a guy, he's a private equity investor, and I have been trying to get in front of him for like months. It was really difficult. And he was either not picking up my phone, or he wouldn't, he was just like, shoot my emails and be like, yeah, Geena, we'll get together soon. It was very difficult. And then finally, I got a chance to meet him during lunch, and, he was sitting across from me, kind of like diagonal. And we were talking about golf, and that's the thing. Like once they're like, oh, you golf, Geena? I'm like, yeah, I mean, and I'm very, honest. Hey, I'm not good, but I love it, right? I mean, I'm not, and I'm new and I'm a beginner, and they're like, okay, cool. I'm like, yeah, hey, if you ever want to get out, on the course, let me know. Cool. Finally got a chance to get out with this guy on the course. It was me, him, and two of my other, business partners, and we didn't talk business at all. We literally were just laughing it up about, sports or about, whatever else it was, just. And finally at the end, he was like, Geena, he's like, I've got this company that I think needs your services. And I was like, cool. He's like, yeah. He's like, I think, I think I kind of now understand what you do and what you bring to the table. Let me introduce you to the CEO of this company. I'm like, yeah, sweet. Like, and that was pretty much it, got the deal done. And, and it was because he felt at that point, 4 hours later, and sometimes it takes more than, a round. You take 2 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever it is. And it's okay, right? It's okay if that happens. But yeah, he's like, oh, okay. I wasn't just a salesperson to him now. I was a person that actually had a personality, and actually he knew that like, I actually was I had credibility behind what I was, offering to him and his company. So, and it allows you to be there. Like they're stuck with you for 4 hours. They can't go anywhere. So, and then it allows you to really kind of bring that wall down, let them bring their wall down too. Because, when you're in a business conversation, of course you want to be professional, you want to have, like business acumen, and you want to be, super, professional around the conversation. But at the same time, we're all human, right? And I think the pandemic has really allowed us to really, turn this, world into more like a humane society where it's like, hey, we all freaking, have kids and pets, and we wear PJs, and we do everything, right? And this whole working from home has really changed the game. And I think if you are in sales, and I think if you are working from home, and I think you're, maybe possibly, struggling from hitting your numbers, because that's just the name of the game. I think, change it up a bit, don't, pick up golf for that. I got into a women's, association around golf, and then the idea was, how can females get more into golf to help with their, selling tactic, right? I mean, I try not to go totally all in that realm or that like route, because I want to still love the game and not make it seem so like rigid and all about, trying to close a deal. But if you want to have a sense of like, hey, I want to get out there, I want to pick up the game because it looks fun, I just don't know what to do, where to go, how to start, make it a business thing. And I promise you, it'll push you to be better. Because if you're going to close deals from that, you're going to be like, shit, I got to get better at this fucking game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it doesn't matter what field you're in, but I think, what, to your point with the story, they can see you as a person and like your vulnerability, right? They can see you just as a normal, as opposed to sitting across the dinner from somebody that you really don't know, and you know that you're there for business, can get very, very awkward. It can be very, even from the training standpoint, when you bring somebody in an office after a session, everybody knows what you're gonna talk about, right? Or if somebody is interested in training, right? Everybody knows kind of what we're gonna do, right? We're not gonna have a conversation about random stuff and then kind of come back into business. But I think for golf, it's kind of one of those things where everybody's going to be vulnerable, right? Because not everybody's somebody's going to hit a bad shot somewhere or whatever. But I think it's just being able to enjoy them, right? But golf is one of those things where it's kind of a professional thing, right? You're not asking to go play pickup basketball or touch football, right? You can still get away with doing that because of, how it is with the clothes and everything else. And then tennis, I think, is another one. But I got no chance in that. So we'll stick with the golf.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to pick up tennis or pickleball or any of that. Not that. But the great thing about golf is like you can be at any age and play. Just doesn't matter. Like Ho Classic, right? It's a senior tournament. These guys are over 60, right? I've seen men on the course that are like, I swear to God, probably 95. It's just the fact, like that is to me, because I always wondered, and I don't know about you, Jonah, how old you are, but like I remember in my 20s, I was like, what am I going to do when I get older? Like what am I going to, I remember, in your 20s and you see the 30s in the club, you're like, oh, I'm not going to be doing that, and then I'm 30, I'm still in the clubs. and then you get to your 40s, you're like, what am I going to be doing? It used to be that whole stigma of playing bingo, right? Like as you get older,
shuffleboard.
Yeah, exactly. Shuffleboard. But now it's like, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, oh shit, you know what? I'm 41, going to be 42 this year. And, I'm going to be playing golf till the day I die. And it's fun knowing that you're going to be able to, and be able to do that with your kids and your grandkids or whatever. Like, it's not a game where you're having to, it's not an age game, right? Like wrestling or boxing, height's got to be the same, weight's got to be the same, everything's got to be the same, right? You're a point guard for basketball, you got to be tall, right? You're gonna, I'm not tall, not point guard, you're gonna be short and quick. For the center, you got to be tall. But like the point is here is like it doesn't matter, right? You can play with anyone at any age, any gender, any any different types of I guess gin, if you will, right?
Yeah,
that handicap, it doesn't really matter.
No, absolutely. We just brought up Lee Trevino's 86 or 83, and he played in that the father-son tournament that Tiger and his son played in, the one that they have. I don't know, it was a couple months ago. But yeah, he's 86, still playing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, fucking Charlie is playing with his dad.
13 years old, and he's unbelievable.
I mean,
then you watch him and you want to quit because he's 13 years old and he's parring regular par threes, and I'm like, this is a disaster. I never want to play this again.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny because, like, not a little bit away from golf, but even like during, like, on a business level, right? Like, you see these, like, really young cats that are, like, just like killing it in tech startups. And you're like, what am I doing? Like, I feel like a loser. Yeah, but it's great. I love the game.
Yeah. Well, I think with the tech startup thing, not to get away from, but it's the technology. If you figure it out, right? I mean, this wasn't, I'll be 34, but this wasn't a thing when I was in high school. Thank God Instagram and Facebook wasn't a thing when I was in high school, or cell phones or anything else. But now when you have to go back into it, right, you have to learn this whole other thing, right? And, much like yours, I'm not a person that, I don't want to tell everybody everything I'm doing all the time.
Yeah.
If I had my thing, I wouldn't do that in the first place. So I think that's where, kind of going back to what we spoke about before, like, that fear, if you will, right, of putting things on there or getting help from social media, because there's the negative connotation, right? Even when people help you, they want you to acknowledge things, right? Instead of a thumbs up or a thank you or whatever, right? They want, like, admiration, instead of just understanding, like, it's a place where you can kind of have your vulnerability, but make sure that you understand, you're going to get some negative, but don't worry about those things. Take kind of the positive stuff, and then use those things as, either networking or to help you get better. And I think it goes far beyond, the golf stuff, even for me as a podcast person, is just understanding what you're using it for, right? And like you said before, with goal setting, set a goal. What do I want to use Instagram for? Okay, well, I can look at the negative comments, or I can take the positive comments, right? Maybe I can try them. Maybe they've helped my game. And then maybe I can, network and meet some other people. And I think to me, that's kind of where we miss things with social media, right? And that's where this whole, like, new thing where there's just people that are miserable that sit at home and they just, kind of nitpick at everything. But I'm like, if people just learn to understand what we use it for, right? I use Instagram for business, not so I can watch what my friends are doing on the weekends or whatever. We can talk on the phone for that, or in person like normal people. But I think that's another thing just to help with, because I talk about it all the time, but social media in general, understanding what it's for, right? And saying, okay, I'm going to use this for business. This is what it's for. Or I'm going to use this to, like what you're doing. I'm going to use this to kind of catalog my journey through golf. And then I'm going to use it for myself. And so I can get better and see what happens.
Yeah. And it's so great too. I think, just to your point, like, for me, using Instagram is not only to, kind of, show the journey that I'm going through from, like, from beginning to indefinite, I guess. But more being able to hear other people's stories, and that I'm not alone and they're not alone. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, shit, oh my God. Like, well, Geena just picked it up. One, she's female, so that's good. This is a really great shout out to females who are wanting to get more into golf. Not just for, I love everyone. I love everyone is doing what they should be doing in their life. It's all I'm gonna say. But don't do it to ruin the game where you're trying to be super cute and super sexy, and you're out there wearing short skirts, which I'm sure all men love. More power to you if you're a listener on this, but I definitely want to ensure that this is also something that's, like, we want to, kind of keep intact, and it is for more, like, more support for women who really want to take this, sport in, and either utilize it on a business perspective, or utilize it on a sport perspective, or utilize it on a, exercise perspective. I think that's the fear that I think, female golfers probably look at me going, oh shit, Geena's coming in, whatever. She's probably going to try to, screw this up for us because, whatever, she just came in playing 2 years. It's not that. It really is an obsession. I am addicted. Like, I kid you not, right?
Oh, I see on Instagram, you're out there every day. I'm like, does she live on a golf course? Does she just walk across the street?
Yeah, well, shit. The one I'm playing is not too far from me. It's my municipal, but yeah, I say all this to say is, to each his own, right? Anyone who wants to pick up golf, and for whatever reason, do it, right? And one of my followers was like, Geena, I really want to pick up golf, but I'm too scared. I'm like, dude, just pick up a club and do it, right? And that's the thing. I think, not realizing that there's whether you're female or male or whatever gender you are, and you want to just get up and you want to do it, and you're a little fearful, like no one's watching you. No one really gives a shit about your fucking swing, really. At the end of the day, they're worried about their own swing. They're worried about what their ball. They're worried about where they're at, right? I mean, yeah, you're in a car. No one's really looking, and if they are looking, they're probably wondering, oh, you like. I think they're probably staring and like totally analyzing, my swing, going, oh yeah, Geena sucks. But
most people can't see. You're usually 70 yards away anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even see my own ball off the tee, so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That looked great.
And changing the subject really quick before I go back.
The only time you ever analyze somebody's shot is if you're waiting on the tee box for somebody and they go side to side and they take forever, and then you're like, okay, this person can't figure this out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then sometimes they're analyzing. They'll give me a comment. They're like, Geena, man, that was a great swing. I'm like, oh shit, good. Like I thought you were gonna tell me like I needed to work on this and that. But there's those guys too, Joe, that oh my god, they will find a ball in the fucking rough.
Oh, I have a friend like that. Yeah, they'll run in the woods.
And I'm just like, how the hell did you see that? Like, or like they'll just like, oh, it's right there. Like, pop. Or like they're just like ball finders. There's people out there just ball finders.
Oh, I have one of my friends who's really good does that. He'll run into the woods 20 feet deep and come out with a ball. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I didn't do
that. But back to, just being, getting into golf and it's great. Like I was in Austin at South by, and I was like, in some random, I think event where they were showing like AI and like 4D tech stuff, right? I mean, I guess, we're in the future, right? I mean, we really don't think we are, but we are. So anyway, I'm standing there with a friend of mine, and this guy turns and goes, are you a golfer, girl? And I go, oh, I was like, yeah. And he goes, oh, I follow you. And the guy you would have never, if you just saw him up and down, like he didn't look like a golfer, he looked like he was just, I mean, you have an image of what a golfer would look like, right? He was, also Asian, and, he was blinged up, like I think his whole hand was blinged. He was all in tech, right? He owns his own, like he was all into NFTs and just, and nowadays it's become a bit of a trend, right? Golf has become a bit of a trend where it's like, you're cool if you play golf, right? I think in a sense, mostly with the generation, the younger generation. But yeah, it was really cool. He was just like, oh, I follow you. I was like, oh man, that's awesome, dude. And that's the thing. You can't point and now really specify and pin down who a golfer really is, and that's the great thing about the game. I think you're now able to just be like, because anyone can pick up a club, and as long as I think you do it for the right reasons. I think that's where I'm going with that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think just before you go out, understand the sport, but then take your time and then just understand that, even the pros don't have it all figured out. But I think it's something that is continuously growing, but I think it's underrated in what we talked about, especially for business. And then just being also something you can challenge yourself with, and you don't need other people. And it really, as you spoke about before, it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are when you start. It's something that you can do forever. I mean, I spoke about before, I played basketball and things. I can't play that forever. I play a little bit here and there, but if I play too long, I can't move. So I think it's just one of those things. It's great to get involved in because it keeps you, active, but also, you can meet great people, but also it's just, I think it's good for everything, right? Mental stuff keeps you challenged, physical, and then obviously for networking purposes. Yeah. So, Geena, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, ask you more questions about your golf journey, where is the best place to get a hold of you and kind of talk to you and send you some messages and kind of get more on your background?
I would say, definitely Instagram. I try to stay very, private. I like I mentioned earlier in the the podcast, is I'm a pretty private person, and believe it or not, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on, any of that, and I've tried to steer clear of any of that, But but I'm totally cool and happy about like helping anyone out, or just, having conversations, discussions, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that, I read all my messages on Instagram, I wouldn't have gotten to yours, Joe, right? And seeing that, like, this was a really great opportunity for myself and for you, and just to allow listeners to kind of hear, the story behind, behind myself, I guess. Kind of weird to say. But yeah, I mean, I think, if anyone wants to reach out to me, I do read all my messages on Instagram, and we'll get back to you with something that, you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. And I will put her Instagram on the post when the episode drops in a few weeks so that you can get a hold of her.
Cool.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I had a blast.
I did too. That was so fun. Thank you so much, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at strength_coach_experience for all the latest updates on the podcast, as well as information on upcoming episodes. Thank you.